Hey guys, tonight we're going to slow things down and sit with the story that matters. Marcus Tate, a 22-year-old from Seattle, carries a mind sharp as a blade, honed by his mother's years as a paralegal, yet stands accused in a courtroom that sees only his youth and skin. Framed for a crime he didn't commit, he faces sneers and biases that sting deeper than the charges. Before we begin, please like the video and subscribe, but only if stories like this truly move you. Comment your city Wahaman and the time you are watching. Now close your eyes or don't, it's your choice. Either way, you're about to witness something real. The Seattle courthouse looms like a stone giant, its marble steps worn smooth by decades of footsteps, seeking justice or its shadow. Inside, the air hums with the faint buzz of fluorescent lights and unspoken prejudice. Marcus Tate stands at the defendant's table, his worn jacket hanging loose on his lean frame. At 22, he's young enough to be dismissed, old enough to know the weight of the room's eyes. His dark eyes scan the gallery of reporters, scribbling jurors, shifting a few spectators. Whispering. The charge is grand theft auto, a stolen BMW found abandoned near his neighborhood. But to Judge Evelyn Harper, perched high on her bench, Marcus is already guilty. Her glasses glint as she peers down, lips curling into a faint, dismissive smirk. "Let's keep this brief, Mr. Tate," she says, her voice crisp-cutting. "I've got a full docket." Marcus doesn't flinch. His hands rest in his pockets, but his shoulders are square, his chin lifted just enough to signal he's not here to bend. He's been in rooms like this before, not as a defendant, but as a shadow at his mother's side. Lenora Tate, a paralegal for 2 decades, filled their small apartment with stories of trials of prosecutors who twisted truths of judges who played favorites. Marcus soaked it all in memorizing case law, while his friends chased basketball dreams. By 16, he could dissect a trial's flaws better than most law students. Now those lessons are his shield. Some truths linger waiting to be unveiled. The prosecutor, Victor Lang, rises his tailored suit, a stark contrast to Marcus's faded clothes. Lang's voice booms polished and rehearsed as he addresses the jury. "Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence is clear. Marcus Tate was found near a stolen vehicle, his fingerprints on the wheel. He ran from police, a guilty act." His eyes flick to Marcus sharp with condescension. "You're just a kid lost here," he says loud enough for the gallery to hear. A few jurors nod. A spectator chuckles. The words land like a slap, but Marcus's face remains still, a quiet storm brewing behind his gaze. His mother Lenora sits in the bottom row, her hands clasped tight, her face a mask of pride and fear. She knows her son's mind, knows he's not the boy they see. The courtroom's wooden benches creak as the gallery leans in, savoring the drama. Lang paces, holding up a photo of the BMW, its sleek frame gleaming under streetlights. This car, he says, was reported stolen from a Capitol Hill driveway. Hours later, police spotted it downtown with Mr. Tate's prints all over it. He turns to Marcus, smirking. "Care to explain that?" The question is a trap meant to rattle. Marcus's public defender, Clara Evans, shifts nervously beside him, her notes a mess of scribbles. She's overworked, underprepared, her faith in Marcus thin. He places a hand on her arm, a silent request. She hesitates, then nods. Marcus steps forward, voice steady. "I'll speak for myself, Your Honor." A murmur ripples through the room. Judge Harper raises an eyebrow, her smirk deepening. "You're sure about that young man?" Her tone drips with doubt, laced with something uglier, assumptions about his youth, his race, his place in her world. Marcus meets her gaze, unflinching. "I'm sure." The words are simple, but they carry a weight that quiets the room for a moment. Lang snorts, crossing his arms, ready to pounce. The jury watches, some curious, some skeptical. Marcus knows they see a kid in over his head, not a man who's spent years studying the law's cracks. He knows the system expects him to crumble. He won't. The injustice stings sharp and familiar. It's in Harper's dismissive glance, in Lang's taunting smile, in the jury's quick judgments. Marcus feels it like a pulse in his chest, but he holds his silence, letting their assumptions build. His mother taught him this. Let them underestimate you, but then strike with precision. Lenora's stories weren't just lessons. They were warnings of a world that sees a young black man and assumes the worst. Marcus grew up in Rainier Valley, where police sirens were as common as rain, where neighbors swapped tales of wrongful stops, unfair charges. He's seen friends pinned against walls for looking suspicious. Now he's the one in the crosshairs, accused of a theft He didn't committee his innocence buried under lazy police work and bias. The courtroom clock ticks each second heavy. Marcus scans the evidence table photos, reports a fingerprint analysis. He knows the case is flimsy, built on half-truths. The BMW's owner, a tech executive named Gerald Klein, reported it stolen after leaving it running outside a coffee shop. Police found it blocks from Marcus's apartment, his prints on the door. They arrested him nearby, walking home with a bag of chips, no car in sight. But to Harper, the story is already written, young black, guilty. Marcus's jaw tightens, but he keeps his face calm, his hands steady. He's not here to rage. He's here to dismantle. Harper taps her saddle lightly, her eyes narrowing. Proceed, Mr. Lang. The prosecutor nods, launching into his opening statement, painting Marcus as a reckless delinquent who fled justice. The gallery eats it up, their whispers a low hum. Marcus listens, cataloging every word, every gesture. Lang's confidence is his weakness, a house of cards waiting for a gust. Marcus's fingers brush the edge of his jacket pocket, where a folded note from his mother rests. You are enough. The words anchor him, a quiet fire in his chest. He's not just fighting for himself. He's fighting for every kid who stood where he stands, judged before they speak. The room feels smaller now, the air thick with expectation. Marcus knows the next hours will test him, but he's ready. He's been ready since he was 14, arguing imaginary cases in his bedroom. His mother's voice echoing, know the law, but know the room. He knows this room, its power, its prejudice, its blind spots. He knows Harper's impatience, Lang's arrogance, the jury's doubt. And he knows something they don't. The truth is a weapon, and he wields it like a blade. The trial has just begun, but Marcus Tate is already rewriting the story. The Seattle courthouse hums with a restless energy, its high ceilings amplifying every whisper, every creak of the wooden benches. Marcus Tate stands at the defendant's table, his worn jacket a stark contrast to the polished suits around him. The air feels heavy, charged with the weight of judgment. Victor Lang, the prosecutor, paces before the jury, his voice sharp and deliberate, slicing through the room like a well-aimed dart. This case is simple, he declares, holding up a photograph of the stolen BMW, its chrome glinting under a street lamp. Marcus Tate's fingerprints were on the steering wheel. He was seen near the vehicle fleeing from police. Guilt doesn't need a complicated story. His eyes flicked to Marcus, a taunting smirk curling his lips. You thought you'd outrun justice, didn't you? Marcus's face remains still, but his hands clench briefly in his pockets, a flicker of heat beneath his calm exterior. The words sting not because they're true, but because they're meant to wound, to paint him as the delinquent Lang wants the jury to see. The gallery murmurs, a few jurors nodding, their faces etched with quick assumptions. Marcus feels their eyes heavy with bias, racial, generational, unspoken. He's 22, black from Rainier Valley, a neighborhood where police lights flash too often, where innocence is a luxury. To them, he's already a statistic. But Marcus knows better. Some truths linger, waiting to be unveiled. Judge Evelyn Harper leans back in her chair, her glasses catching the courtroom's harsh light. She taps a pen against her desk, her expression a mix of impatience and disdain. Mr. Tate, your response. Her tone suggests she expects little, her gaze skimming over him like he's a minor inconvenience. Marcus steps forward, his voice steady, measured. Your Honor, the prosecution's story is convenient, but it's not the truth. A ripple of surprise passes through the room. Lang snorts, crossing his arm, but Marcus doesn't waver. He turns to the jury, meeting their eyes one by one. Fingerprints don't tell the whole story. Neither does a police report written in haste. Lang pounces, his voice rising. Haste, you're questioning the integrity of Seattle's finest. He turns to the jury, playing to their sympathies. Officers risked their lives chasing this defendant through downtown. His prints were on the car. He ran. What more do you need? The gallery stirs, a few spectators nodding, their whispers like static. Marcus's mother, Lenora, sits in the back, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles pale. Her eyes burn with pride, but worry lines her face. She knows the system's tricks, knows how it bends truth to fit narratives. She taught Marcus to see those bends, to find the cracks. Now he's walking that tightrope. The injustice deepens, a slow poison seeping through the room. Lang presents the police report, reading aloud from Officer Michael Brent's account. The suspect, Marcus Tate, was spotted near the vehicle at 11:47 p.m., attempting to flee. He holds up the document, letting it linger in the air. Sign in and verified. Marcus listens, his jaw tight, but his eyes sharp, cataloging every detail. He knows the report is flawed, knows Brent's account doesn't add up. He was arrested blocks away, walking home with a bag of chips, no car in sight. But to Lang, to Harper, to the jury, the report is gospel. The prosecutor's voice drips with confidence. You were there, Mr. Tate. Stop wasting our time. Marcus's public defender, Claire Evans, shifts in her seat, her notes a chaotic pile. She whispers, "Let me handle this." Marcus shakes his head, his voice low. "I've got this." Clara hesitates, then leans back, her doubt palpable. Marcus steps closer to the jury, his posture calm but unyielding. "Your Honor, I'd like to ask Mr. Lang about Officer Brent's report." Harper raises an eyebrow, her pen pausing. "Go on," she says, her tone skeptical. Marcus's voice is clear, deliberate. "Mr. Lang, you said Officer Brent saw me near the car. Can you confirm his location at 11:47 p.m.? Lang's smirk falters just for a moment, but he recovers quickly. "The report is clear. Brent was on duty pursuing you." Marcus nods, his expression unreadable. Then his GPS logs should confirm that, right? A murmur spreads through the gallery. Lang's eyes narrow, but he waves a hand dismissively. "This is irrelevant, Your Honor. The evidence speaks for itself." Harper tilts her head, studying Marcus with a flicker of curiosity. "I'll allow it," she says, her voice grudging, "but make it quick." The tension in the room thickens, a taut wire ready to snap. Marcus knows he's struck a nerve, a bone. He's spent years studying trials, watching prosecutors like Lang rely on unchallenged reports on juries too quick to trust authority. His mother's stories echo in his mind, cases rushed evidence, ignored lives upended. He grew up hearing about men like him, young and black, caught in the system's gears. Now he's in those gears, feeling their grind. But he's not helpless. His fingers brush the note in his pocket, Lenora's words steadying him. "You are enough." He holds that truth like a shield, letting Lang's taunts fuel his focus. The courtroom's fluorescent lights cast stark shadows, the air heavy with anticipation. Lang calls Officer Brent to the stand, his confidence unshaken. Brent, a broad-shouldered man with a clipped tone, swears in and recites his report. "I saw the suspect near the vehicle, acting suspicious," he says, his eyes avoiding Marcus. Lang nods, satisfied. No further questions. Marcus rises, his movements deliberate, his voice calm but piercing. "Officer Brent, you said you saw me at 11:47 p.m. Where exactly were you?" Brent shifts, his jaw tightening. "Downtown near Pine Street." Marcus tilts his head. "And you were on patrol alone?" Brent nods curt. "Yes." Marcus pauses, letting the silence stretch, a tactic he learned from his mother's stories. The jury leans forward, sensing something shift. "Your Honor," Marcus says, "I'd like to request Officer Brent's GPS logs from that night." A gasp ripples through the gallery. Lang shoots to his feet. "Objection. This is a fishing expedition." Harper's eyes narrow, but she raises a hand. "Overruled. I want to see where this goes." Marcus's lips twitch, the faintest hint of a smile. He's planted a seed and the room feels it. The injustice burns a slow fire in Marcus's chest. Lang's taunts. Brent's vague answers. Harper's skepticism. They're all part of the same machine, one that's crushed too many before him. He thinks of his neighborhood of friends, stopped for fitting a description of his mother's late nights poring over case files, her voice fierce. "They don't expect you to fight back." Marcus is fighting, but not with anger. His strength is in his silence, his questions, his refusal to break. The jury watches, some skeptical, some intrigued. A woman in the front row, her hair streaked with gray, meets his gaze, her expression softening. Maybe she sees it too, the truth behind the mask. The clock above Harper's bench ticks each second, a reminder of the stakes. Marcus knows the GPS logs could unravel. Brent's story could expose the rush to pin the crime on him. He knows Lang's case relies on the jury's trust and authority, on their willingness to overlook gaps. But Marcus sees those gaps, and he's ready to widen them. The courtroom feels alive now, its pulse quickening. Lang shuffles his papers, his smirk gone. Harper adjusts her glasses, her impatience giving way to something else, attention. Marcus stands taller, his voice a quiet blade. He's not just defending himself. He's challenging a system that's forgotten how to listen. The Seattle courthouse feels like a pressure cooker, its air thick with anticipation and the faint hum of overhead lights. Marcus Tate stands at the defendant's table, his worn jacket slightly askew, but his posture unyielding. The gallery shifts their whispers a low buzz as eyes dart between him and the bench where Judge Evelyn Harper presides. Her glasses perched low on her nose, her expression a mix of curiosity and skepticism, as if Marcus is a puzzle she's not sure she wants to solve. Victor Lang, the prosecutor, leans back in his chair, his arms crossed, his earlier smirk replaced by a tight-lipped scowl. Marcus's request for Officer Brent's GPS logs hangs in the room like a storm cloud, its shadow darkening Lang's polished narrative. The jury watches their faces, a canvas of doubt and intrigue, sensing the case teetering on an unseen edge. Marcus's voice cuts through the tension, calm but precise. Your Honor, I'd like to ask Officer Brent about the timeline of his report. Harper raises an eyebrow, her pen pausing mid-tap. Proceed, Mr. Tate, but don't waste my time. Her tone is sharp, laced with the same dismissal Marcus has felt since he stepped into this room. A young black man presumed guilty by his age, his skin, his address. He nods, turning to Brent, who sits rigid on the witness stand, his hands clasped too tightly. Officer Brent Marcus begins, You said you saw me near the car at 11:47 p.m. on Pine Street. How long were you there before you spotted me? Brent shifts his eyes, flicking to Lang. A few minutes, he says, his voice clipped. Marcus tilts his head, his gaze steady. And you were alone, correct? No partner, no backup. Brent's jaw tightens. Yes. The gallery murmurs, a ripple of unease spreading. Marcus lets the silence linger, a trick his mother Lenora taught him. Let the room feel the weight of a question. He thinks of her now seated in the back row, her hands still clasped, her eyes fierce with unspoken support. Lenora's stories of sloppy police work, of reports written to fit narratives, echo in his mind. Marcus knows Brent's story has cracks, and he's prying them open. Your Honor, he says, turning to Harper, I'd like to see the dashcam footage from Officer Brent's vehicle that night. Lang shoots to his feet, his face flushed. Objection! This is irrelevant. Harper's eyes narrow, but she leans forward intrigued. Overruled. I'm curious, Mr. Tate. Let's see where this leads. The injustice burns deeper now, a raw ache in Marcus's chest. Lang's case hinges on Brent's word on fingerprints that tell only half a story on a system that trusts authority over truth. Marcus feels the room's bias like a weight, Harper's impatience, the jury's quick judgments, the gallery's whispers about kids like him. He grew up in Rainier Valley, where police cruisers prowled like predators, where his friends were stopped for wearing hoodies for laughing too loud. He's seen the system's gears grind, seen it spit out guilty verdicts for men who look like him, who didn't have his mother's lessons or his years of studying law in a cramped apartment. But Marcus holds his silence, his hands steady, his eyes burning with quiet resolve. Some truths linger waiting to be unveiled. The court clerk retrieves the dashcam footage, and the room falls silent as a screen flickers to life. The video shows Pine Street at night, streetlights casting long shadows. Brent's cruiser is parked, but the timestamp reads 11:52 p.m., 5 minutes after Brent claimed to see Marcus. The gallery gasps softly, jurors exchanging glances. Marcus steps forward, his voice even. Officer Brent, if you were on Pine Street at 11:47, why does your dash cam show you arriving later? Brent's face pales, his hands fidgeting. I must have misspoken, he stammers. Lang rises, his voice sharp. This proves nothing. The defendant's prints were still on the car, but the jury's eyes are on Marcus, their doubt shifting toward Brent. Marcus turns over to the jury, his tone measured but piercing. The prosecution wants you to believe I stole a car, drove it downtown, and left my prints behind. But let's think about those prints. He gestures to the evidence table where a photo of the BMW sits. I touched that car earlier that day outside a coffee shop. It was unlocked, parked on a busy street. I leaned against it, curious, stupid maybe, but not criminal. He pauses, meeting the eyes of a juror, a middle-aged woman with gray streaks in her hair. If you touch a door handle at a store, does that make you a thief? The woman's lips twitch, a flicker of understanding crossing her face. Lang counters, his voice rising. You were arrested near the car, Mr. Tate. You ran from police. Marcus shakes his head, his voice steady. I was arrested 3 blocks away, walking home with a bag of chips. I didn't run. I didn't drive. I wasn't near that car when it was stolen. He turns to Harper. Your Honor, the prosecution's case rests on assumptions, not evidence. Officer Brent's timeline doesn't add up, and neither does their story. Harper leans back, her expression unreadable, but her pen has stopped tapping. The room feels alive, its pulse quickening as Marcus's words land. The gallery stirs, reporters scribbling furiously. Lenora's hands unclasp, her fingers trembling with hope. She knows her son's mind knows he's turning the tide. Marcus feels her presence a quiet anchor. He thinks of her late nights, her voice fierce as she read case files aloud, teaching him to see the law's blind spots. He thinks of his neighborhood, of the boys who didn't make it out of courtrooms like this, their stories buried under rushed verdicts. The injustice is afire now, but Marcus channels it into precision. His questions sharp, his calm unshaken. His fingers brush the note in his pocket. Lenora's words, "You are enough," and he stands taller, a man the room is starting to see. Lang calls another witness, the forensic analyst who processed the fingerprints. The analyst, a nervous woman named Susan Cole, confirms the prints match Marcus's. Lang smirks, sensing a rebound. "Clear evidence, Your Honor." But Marcus rises, his voice soft but unyielding. "Ms. Cole, was the car tested for other prints?" Cole hesitates. "Yes, but we focused on the steering wheel." Marcus nods. "And were any other prints found, say, on the door of the gear shift?" Cole shifts, her eyes darting to Lang. "There were partial prints, but they weren't conclusive." Marcus's lips twitch, a faint smile. "So someone else touched that car, but their prints were ignored." The jury leans forward, the room's tension spiking. Harper adjusts her glasses, her gaze sharper now, fixed on Marcus. Lang's scowl deepens, his papers shuffling as he scrambles to regain control. The gallery feels it, a shift, a crack in the prosecution's armor. Marcus knows knows the next piece of evidence could break the case open. He thinks of the car's owner, Gerald Klein, whose statement Lang buried, a statement that points to another suspect. He's not ready to reveal it yet, but the groundwork is laid. The courtroom clock ticks each second, heavy with possibility. Marcus's calm is a weapon, his questions a blade, and the system is starting to feel their edge. The Seattle courthouse pulses with a taut electric silence, its high ceilings amplifying the faintest rustle of papers, the soft creak of benches. Marcus Tate stands at the defendant's table, his worn jacket now a badge of defiance, his dark eyes burning with quiet fire. The gallery holds its breath, eyes darting between him and Judge Evelyn Harper, whose glasses glint under the stark courtroom lights. Her face, once etched with dismissal, now betrays a flicker of unease, her pen motionless on her desk. Victor Lang, the prosecutor, grips his notes, his earlier confidence, fraying his jaw tight, as Marcus's questions chip away at his case. The jury leans forward, their skepticism shifting, drawn to the young man who refuses to bend. The room feels alive, its air heavy with the weight of a truth about to break free. Marcus's voice, steady and clear, cuts through the tension. "Your Honor, I'd like to submit a document into evidence." Harper tilts her head, her expression guarded but curious. "What document?" Mr. Tate. Marcus reaches into his jacket, pulling out a folded sheet, its edges worn from careful handling. A statement from Gerald Klein, the owner of the stolen BMW. A murmur ripples through the gallery, heads turning and reporters scribbling. Lang shoots to his feet, his voice sharp. "Objection! This is hearsay, Your Honor." Harper raises a hand, silencing him. "Let me see it," she says, her tone clipped but intrigued. Marcus steps forward, handing the paper to the bailiff, his movements deliberate, his calm unshaken. The injustice that has simmered for days now boils a raw, visceral force in Marcus's chest. Lang's case, built on shaky fingerprints, a flawed police report, and unchecked bias, has painted him as a thief, a delinquent, a statistic. The gallery's whispers, Harper's sneers, the jury's early doubts. They've all fed a narrative that Marcus, a 22-year-old black man from Rainier Valley, is guilty by default. He feels the system's weight, its gears grinding against him, just as they've ground against so many others. His mother, Lenora, sits in the back, her hands trembling, her eyes fierce with hope. She taught him to see this machine, to find its weaknesses. Now he's dismantling it piece by piece with the precision she instilled. Some truths linger, waiting to be unveiled. Harper scans the document, her lips pursing. "This is a signed statement from Mr. Klein," she says, her voice measured. "Read it aloud, Mr. Tate." Marcus nods, taking the paper back, his voice steady but resonant, filling the room. On the night of the theft, I left my car running outside a coffee shop on Capitol Hill. I saw a young man, white blonde hair, maybe 20, jump in and drive off. The police arrested someone else, but it wasn't the person I saw. A collective gasp erupts, the gallery erupting into whispers. Lang's face pales, his notes slipping from his fingers. The jury's eyes widen, some leaning forward, others exchanging stunned glances. Marcus turns to Harper, his voice unwavering. Your Honor, this statement was filed with the police but never included in the prosecution's evidence. What? Lang scrambles, his voice rising. This is irrelevant. The defendant's fingerprints were on the car. Marcus shakes his head, his gaze locking onto the jury. My prints were on the car because I touched it earlier that day outside that coffee shop. It was unlocked, parked on a busy street. I leaned against it, opened the door, dumb but not a crime. He pauses, his eyes sweeping the room, meeting the gaze of a juror, a black man in his 50s whose nod is almost imperceptible. The prosecution ignored Mr. Klein's statement because it didn't fit their story. They saw me, young black from Rainier Valley, and decided that was enough. The courtroom freezes, the silence deafening. Harper adjusts her glasses, her face unreadable, but her hands are still, her earlier impatience gone. Lang's shoulders slump, his arrogance deflated, his case unraveling like a threadbare cloth. The gallery feels it, a seismic shift, a truth too loud to ignore. Marcus stands taller, his voice soft but piercing. Your Honor, I wasn't near that car when it was stolen. I was arrested 3 blocks away, walking home with a bag of chips. The police didn't investigate Mr. Klein's description. They didn't check Officer Brent's timeline. They didn't want the truth. He turns to the jury, his eyes burning with quiet resolve. They wanted a conviction. The injustice is a wound now raw and open, but Marcus's strength is his calm, his refusal to rage. He thinks of his mother's stories of men like him who faced this room and lost their voices, drowned by bias. He thinks of Rainier Valley, of police lights flashing through his childhood, of friends who carried the same weight he carries now. His fingers brush the note in his pocket. Lenora's words, "You are enough," and he feels her presence, a steady anchor. The jury watches, their faces shifting, doubt, giving way to clarity, skepticism, to respect. The woman with gray-streaked hair, who once looked at him with pity, now sits forward, her eyes bright with understanding. Harper clears her throat, her voice cutting through the silence. Mr. Lang, do you have a response? Lang hesitates, his hands fumbling with his papers. Your Honor, the evidence still points to the defendant's involvement. His voice lacks conviction, a hollow echo of his earlier bravado. Harper's eyes narrow, her gaze shifting to Marcus. Mr. Tate, anything further? Marcus nods, his voice steady. Your Honor, I move to dismiss the charges. The prosecution's case is built on assumptions, not facts. Officer Brent's timeline is false. Mr. Klein's statement clears me. There's no evidence I stole that car. The gallery holds its breath, the room poised on a knife's edge. Harper leans back, her face a mask of contemplation. The clock above her bench ticks each second, heavy with possibility. Finally, she speaks, her voice low but clear. Case dismissed. The words land like a thunderclap, the gallery erupting into chaos, gasps. Murmurs, a few cheers. Reporters scramble, their pens flying. Lang sinks into his chair, his face ashen, his career's shine tarnished. The jury exchanges glances, some nodding, others stunned, as if waking from a dream. Marcus stands still, letting the moment settle, his heart pounding, but his face calm. Harper removes her glasses, her eyes meeting his for the first time with something like respect. Mr. Tate, she says softly, you've a future in law. The victory is quiet, a fire bank but burning. Marcus feels the weight lift, but not entirely. There are too many others. Too many courtrooms. Too many stories like his. He thinks of Lenora, of her late nights, her fierce love, her lessons that carried him here. The gallery watches, some in awe, some in disbelief, as he gathers his papers, his movements deliberate. The system blinked today, but Marcus knows it's not enough. He's exposed its flaws, its rush to judge, its blindness to truth. His fingers brush the note in his pocket, a reminder of who he's fighting for, not just himself, but every kid who stands where he stood, unseen, unheard, but enough. The Seattle courthouse exhales, its heavy air softening, as the chaos of the dismissed case settles into a quieter hum. Marcus Tate steps away from the defendant's table, his worn jacket now a symbol of resilience, his dark eyes catching the golden dusk filtering through high windows. The gallery stirs spectators, rising their whispers, a mix of awe and disbelief. Judge Evelyn Harper remains on her bench, her glasses folded in her hands, her face etched with a rare stillness, as if the room's gravity has shifted. Victor Lang gathers his papers with trembling fingers, his once sharp suit rumpled, his arrogance buried under the weight of a case that crumbled. The jury files out their glances, lingering on Marcus. Some nod, others offer small smiles, their earlier doubts replaced by respect. Outside, the city hums, unaware of the triumph unfolding within these walls, a triumph that feels both vast and fragile. Marcus moves toward the courtroom doors, his steps measured, his heart still racing from the victory. The weight of the past days, Lang's taunts, Harper's sneers, the jury's skepticism lifts, but not entirely. He carries the echoes of Rainier Valley of police lights, cutting through his childhood of friends, whose stories ended in courtrooms less forgiving than this one. His fingers brush the note in his pocket. Lenora's words, "You are enough," a quiet anchor that steadies him now, as it has through every trial. The doors swing open and the courthouse steps greet him with a rush of cool air, the sky streaked with amber and gray. Reporters swarm their cameras, flashing microphones thrusting forward. "Mr. Tate, did you expect to win? What's next?" He pulls his jacket tighter, ignoring the clamor, his eyes scanning the crowd for the one face that matters. Lenora stands at the base of the steps, her arms crossed her face, a tapestry of pride and relief. Her hair streaked with silver catches the fading light, and her eyes fierce and unyielding lock onto his. For a moment they say nothing, the world's noise fading. Then she shakes her head, a soft laugh breaking free. "You scared me half to death, Marcus." Her voice trembles, but her smile is wide warm. He grins, scratching the back of his neck. "Had to take a risk, Ma." She pulls him into a hug, her arms tight as if anchoring him to the earth. The cameras flash, but Marcus doesn't notice. This moment is theirs, a quiet victory forged in years of late-night lessons, of case files spread across their kitchen table, of a mother's belief that her son could outsmart a system built to break him. The injustice that brought him here lingers, a shadow that won't fully fade. Marcus thinks of the boys in his neighborhood, of the stories Lenora brought home, cases rushed, evidence, ignored, lives upended by bias. He thinks of Gerald Klein's statement buried by a prosecutor, too eager to convict, of Officer Brent's false timeline, unchallenged until Marcus forced the truth to light. The system blinked today, but it's a fleeting pause in a machine that grinds on. He feels the weight of those who didn't walk free, whose voices were drowned by the same assumptions that nearly drowned his. Yet standing here with Lenora's arms around him, he feels a fire kindling, a resolve to keep fighting, not just for himself, but for them. Across the street, Harper lingers by her car, her posture softer, her usual briskness gone. She watches Marcus and Lenora, her expression unreadable, perhaps touched by regret. She hadn't expected this case to unravel, hadn't expected a young man from Rainier Valley to expose the cracks in her courtroom. Marcus meets her gaze briefly, a silent acknowledgement, but he doesn't linger. Harper's words, "You've a future in law," echo in his mind, not as validation, but as a challenge. He's already on that path, has been, since he was a boy, arguing imaginary cases in his bedroom, his mother's voice guiding him. Know the law, but know the room. He knew this room, its prejudice, its power, and he made it listen. The city stretches before him, its skyline sharp against the dusk, a reminder of the world beyond these steps. Marcus knows this victory is a beginning, not an end. He'll return to courtrooms, not as a defendant, but as an attorney, a voice for those the system overlooks. In a nation built on second chances, he sees the work ahead, not just to win cases, but to reshape a system that too often values verdicts over truth. His triumph today is a spark, a light for others to follow, proof that resilience can crack even the hardest stone. Lenora steps back, her hand on his shoulder, her eyes bright. "You did it," she says softly. Marcus nods, his voice low. "We did it." The reporters fade, their questions unanswered as Marcus and Lenora walk toward home, the city's pulse blending with their own. The note in his pocket feels lighter now, its words a truth he's proven. The system saw him today, not as a statistic, but as a man sharp, unyielding enough. And in that seeing something shifts, a quiet ripple that might one day grow. Justice isn't blind, it needs vigilant hearts, and Marcus's beat strong, ready for the rooms yet to come.